Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Between the Buried and Me, The Blue Nowhere, out September 12th on Century Media Records. The album has 10 tracks, 71 minutes in length, and this is the band's 11th full-length studio album. They are an American prog metalcore band. Now, the best way that I can describe the overall album experience is that it made me feel like Alice in Wonderland. I went down this rabbit hole, and I was not quite sure where I was going, where I was heading, what's the way out, and what's happening around me. Everything seems real, but at the same time, everything seems so chaotic and out of place that you start to question your own sense of reality. That is what this album makes me feel. It gives me this sense of discomfort with some moments of comfort within it, but always making me question exactly what is happening right now. What is happening around me? Where am I going? I know I'm on a journey. The album definitely provides a journey, but it does not make it clear what the path within that journey is. The path is very obscure. The path is really about finding not necessarily your way through, but your way within the songs and trying to figure it out. The emotions and the feelings that come from listening to these songs in the context of the individual tracks, and then try to extrapolate that into what the overall experience perhaps wants to put forward. It's a very difficult album to grasp from that standpoint because it feels like it was created in a moment. It feels organic from that standpoint. It doesn't feel prepared. It's not a record that follows patterns, that offers clear guidelines in terms of what the songs are and what the overall record is. This is an album that doesn't really follow any predetermined ideas. It just has a lot of ideas presented to you, sometimes within a single song, and then obviously from song to song. So it's an album that you can lose yourself easily in this world, and you're always wondering exactly where you are, without really looking forward to where you're going. It's the best way that I can describe this album. It's a really interesting experience, very unique album experience with a very unique sound behind it. A sound that doesn't follow a single element, that is not living off of the back of a single element, either be the bass, the guitars, the drums, or everything else. It's an album that lives off of all of the parts coming together, sometimes in a more streamlined way, sometimes in a more chaotic way. It's also an album that sound-wise feels that it has a lot of raw aspects to it, perhaps a little bit more raw aspects on the creative side than on the sound perspective, because sound-wise the album is very clear, very well produced, very well put together. But sometimes it feels like the ideas were not clear enough in terms of how they're presented, and that's where that sense of chaos comes in and how the songs develop, because it doesn't have linearity within it. It's more about snapshots of where you want to go, almost like you're creating a record and you have ADHD and you lose track of where you are, and your focus changes and you move towards something else, and you start a conversation, but then you're talking about something else, and then you forget about what you were talking and you move into a different parameter and you talk about something that has nothing to do with where everything started. This album sonically has a lot of that, always with great quality, always presented with a great value behind it, because it's a very rich, very textured sound with a lot of different ideas, with a lot of different perspectives. Eclectic is a word that you could use to describe it. I don't think it even scratches the surface of how versatile and how different this album is sound-wise from beginning to end, but even within songs. It's just curveball after curveball after curveball. It's a record that keeps you on your toes from that standpoint, but it also showcases how good this band is at creating a lot of different textures, at creating a lot of different sounds, and bringing them all together under one single roof, under one single umbrella. Any band that can create a sound as diverse as this album is has to be extremely talented, because it sounds perfect at every single corner. You may not find a way of gluing the pieces together, but you cannot deny the quality of the individual pieces within it. And this album is just that. Now, you can also talk about certain elements within this record that play a role or that play an impact, but I don't feel like any of them really define the album. I want to talk about the bass and guitars because those two, while not defining the album, are a huge piece of what the overall sound experience is all about. The bass on this record pops a lot. It's very noticeable from the get-go all the way to the end. It's one of the elements that defines a little bit more of a technical aspect of the record, but also adds to the overall progginess that the album has. So having the bass as predominant as it is on this album, it actually matches the overall chaotic vibe of the record extremely well. It doesn't jolt the album in a negative way. It actually makes the album at times feel a little bit more comforting. It gives a certain feeling of warmth to the overall sound that this album provides. The guitars, very rich in terms of the spectrum of sound, the spectrum of textures that they put forward on this record. From the heaviest sound to the more acoustic, stripped back, almost flamenco style guitar approach, this album has everything. So the guitars on this record offer a complete complete palette of sounds and experiences that definitely enriches the overall experience of the album and allows you to really sit back and just enjoy the art for itself as far as what the guitar sound and execution is all about. When you get into the vocals are as dynamic, as versatile, as experimental to a certain degree as the overall sound on this album is, and that goes hand in hand. You cannot have an album that feels as much as it is in the moment, as it is organic, as it is about a vibe, and not have the vocals match that same sort of vibe, that same sort of approach, without creating patterns, without creating preconceived ideas of where the next step is going to be. This album doesn't have any doesn't offer, I should say, any preconceived ideas of where they're going to go next. And I can say that from second to second almost. So it's really important that if you're going to have that sonically, you match that vocally, and that's exactly what this album offers. A very strong vocal performance top to bottom, and it's one of those records that when you put it all together, you have to expect the unexpected. And I think the moment you press play and the moment you start really going deep into this record, you're going to realize that you just don't know what's coming around the corner. That makes for a very exciting experience because the album sounds incredibly fresh, incredibly outside the box, but you cannot deny the overall chaos that exists within the versatility of the album itself. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with God Terror. Great drums and great heavy guitar sound, both of them. It's what it opens up this song, almost giving it an industrial metal feel to the way the track starts off, with a little bit of a sci-fi horror experience adding on to it. The track finds a way to discover some melancholy and dive deeper into that same melancholy, but it's a track that never really loses that heaviness, never really loses that industrial vibe completely. There are pockets within the song where things turn down or that experience dies out, and it gives a chance for other elements, like I said, melancholy, psychedelic elements to come into the surface and become the predominant driving forces of the track. But at the same time, it's a song that closes almost with the same kind of mindset as it started, and that makes the song, as much as it could be chaotic in between, it does make the song feel a little bit more comfortable because it has two perfect bookends. Then you have a song like Door Number 3. Door Number 3 depends heavily on the guitars and drums on this track a lot more consistently throughout. With the exceptions of the chorus are a little bit more melodic, a little bit richer, a little bit wider, a little bit more open. But the verses are consistently heavy, both with the drums and guitars, and even the vocals. It's just a song that stays perhaps one of the most consistent songs on this album. I don't think it's the most consistent because of the way the chorus really breaks away from that heaviness and offers these really clear melodic pockets. But still, overall, the vibe that you get at the end of the track is a vibe of consistency, considering how inconsistent everything else leading up to this point. But the most consistent song on this record, as far as I'm concerned, is The Blue Nowhere. Super atmospheric, super melodic, almost with some pop rock elements in the song design, in the structure of the song, in the delivery, and the vocals. It has great bass, super warm guitar sound, but it's a very stripped down, very calm, like I said, very pop driven sounding track consistently, versus chorus all the way throughout, making it the most linear, straightforward song that this album offers. This song, it's almost like a balloon of air. The problem is that it comes at the tail end of the record as the second last song, so by then you're completely exhausted from all the chaos and versatility and diversity that the album has. So this song, in my opinion, starts to lead you into the closing of the record, but I honestly would have liked to see this song more in the midway point of the album, because I think from a structural standpoint, at least would have offered a pocket of air at the right time, preparing you, or better preparing you, for all the dynamics that this record has before it and after. Coming at the tail end, it starts to feel like the sun is setting and the record is coming to a closing. It's also a great way of putting it all together. I'm not denying the quality of having the song in this spot. Me, from a preference standpoint, I would have it in the midway point. I think it would have better qualities there, but I understand why it is where it is, and it still works really well in the overall chaos that this album offers. This is it, Between the Buried and Me, The Blue Nowhere, once again out September 12th on Century Media Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comments section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.